Well, David, we are back, and I'd love to sit here and say that it was a miraculous comeback as Dylan Morris just was an absolute stud in that second half and shredded that Michigan defense. But then I realized that none of that happened, and UW put on another just nothing burger.
I'm sorry. I lost attention like the fan base. What happened? What's going on? What are we doing?
Well, apparently
Are we doing a
there was
show?
a game.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live now.
Oh, sorry. So, Huskies lost?
Yeah,
Shocker.
but they did put up 10 points.
Well, I think that's a big story of the game. I think this absolutely saves John Donovan. Yeah, that guy saves his job. He's pretty all right in my book.
You know, I think they just need to rename the offense the John.
Absolutely. Yep, circling that turd down.
You know, it's amazing because, you know, it's time to clean the John as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. With offense like that, you can actually even see the chunks of corn in the turd as it goes down. Pretty cool.
You know, it's sad but true. And, you know, this post-game show is brought to us by Rainier Beer.
I prefer whiskey.
Well, there's only one thing more refreshing than UW lost to Michigan, and that's Rainier.
Washington brewed.
Hops from the Yakima Valley. Our hometown.
Amen.
Well, let's jump into the stats here really quick, even though they're not great, but they're honestly not as bad as one might think. So if we look at the matchup, first downs were, you know, right on par, 19 and 20. Total yards, again, it's actually surprisingly close on that. Passing yards, UW had 293 to Michigan's 44. So David, if I was going to tell you that UW had 293 yards passing and Michigan had only 44, what outcome would you have actually expected the game to be?
This.
But if I just told you the passing yards, nothing else.
Well, passing yards were, you know, semi-respectable, but at the same time, those yards were, you know, they were gathered near the end of the game when things were not really. They were losing. They're done. Yeah. But yes, I would agree that if you had just looked at the passing yards, obviously that you would have thought that UW would have been more competitive. You know, that doesn't tell the full story. You have the rushing yards. Harbaugh really wanted to focus on the run this year, and looks like they schemed accordingly. They took advantage even in the first half before UW's defense was worn down. Second half, obviously de-energized. They're probably not very incentivized due to the inability for the offense to gain a whole lot of momentum. But yeah, unfortunately, it was kind of a big stinker all the way around.
Well, and you mentioned a couple things there that's kind of like, demoralizing. What motivation does the team have? Any of that. And, you know, as we look into this game, UW comes in, and again, it looks like they were beat before the coin flip. And it's sad to think something like that was going to happen, especially to a team that's coming off a Montana loss, and they should have shaken things up, but the John was clogged yet again. And our defense, you know, as good as they looked, the score doesn't show it because they were absolutely gassed. I mean, I'm sitting here looking, they were on the field for over half of the game, and that's not even saying much because the offense didn't help at all. And then when they did start to help and they did start to actually get something together, they just couldn't get that final thing going. So, you know, where do we go from here besides the obvious? And, you know, is it possible that a Lane Kiffin sighting is happening is going to happen at the airport on the tarmac and not let John Donovan back on that plane, or is Jimmy Lake going to see this out and just be stubborn as all get out?
Well, I think he's probably going to be looking at he's probably going to be utilizing the tail end of the second half as an excuse to continue the John Donovan experiment, saying they finally started moving the ball. They started looking a little bit more of like the football that they kind of wanted to see, minus the run the damn ball. They were just throwing it all over the yard, which was actually somewhat effective. Well, shocker, because they were trying to stack the box, and so that left open passing lanes, which is something that you would have figured that they would have accounted for at least the second drive of the first half. So I don't think that anything's going to happen to Donovan. He's probably just going to utilize what little glimmer of hope that they saw in that tail end of the second half as an indicator that there's progress being made. But unfortunately for Lake, the problem for him is that he already amped up expectations, touting the offensive line, saying that this team was going to compete for Pac-12 championships. That's obviously not the case this year. Well, obviously they haven't even played Pac-12 ball. Maybe somehow they turn things around, but I don't see how that happens. I could see the absolute hangover from the Montana loss, though. That was a demoralizing loss. That was a gut punch. That was something I'm sure that is kind of stuck into the minds of the players. And quite honestly, I didn't see anything in that scheme that was going to give the offensive scheme that was going to give them any confidence to sort of jump that hurdle sooner rather than later. Instead of just trying to run it up the gut, which obviously was not very successful.
Yeah, you bring up a few good points there, and just want to give a shout out. Thank you to everybody that is tuning in right now. This is the Teacher Dudes, the post game show. I am Tyler Keefe. You can find me on Twitter at Keefe67. With me tonight is my good friend David Smith, who is at Pet Lessons on the Twitter. Jeff is nowhere to be seen, which is okay because he's a Duck fan. Even though they won, he's probably celebrating somewhere in a toga. And we want to make sure that he keeps his privacy. But we are going to be doing these post game and halftime shows during the Husky games and the Seahawks games all season long, just for fun, to kind of change up the pace. But one thing, as we're looking here, David, I'm looking at the stats. I'm diving in a little bit deeper, and Dylan Morris was 20 of 37 for 293 yards passing and a touchdown. So is it time for Sam Heward to possibly get some reps, against Arkansas State next week? Should he have came in this week against Michigan? What are your thoughts on that?
That was always going to be a hard call for Jimmy Lake to want to put in Heward in, let's say, the second half. That was going to be very difficult for him to do. It's very touchy. Obviously, Morris is a proclaimed starter, performed supposedly well in camp, and removing a quarterback like that kind of like shakes their confidence. And honestly, it didn't work out very well when Pete actually removed starting quarterback a couple of years ago, put in Jake Haener. Obviously, that really wasn't the momentum move that kind of moved the program needle. That game was a loss. It wasn't good. As far as Michigan, at some point, I would have put Heward in probably fourth quarter when it looked like that they weren't going to progress any further. Get him some reps. Obviously, the team started playing a little bit better under Morris, but he still missed some crucial throws. There was a long bomb. I think that was their very last drive. It was a long completion. Some of these stats are kind of skewed. There's some throws. It's basically garbage time. It's almost like the Rose Bowl against Ohio State, where Ohio State had this demanding lead.
Whoa, hold on. So this is just coming across the Twitter feed right now, and apparently Jacksonville State hit a Hail Mary to beat Florida State.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just seeing this. I'm waiting for a tweet to come across with the video to see this. But yeah, Jacksonville State just beat Florida State on a walk-off TD that went for 59 yards.
Amazing.
An
Wow.
absolute brutal loss for Florida State for sure. So once we get that video, we are going to share it here. But yeah,
Speaking of brutal losses, that's obviously a brutal loss for Florida State. I feel bad. After the Notre Dame game, I was kind of rooting for them, hoping that they had some good storylines on that team. Would have been very entertaining to watch.
no, especially the quarterback from
Yes,
UCF.
absolutely. But I really need to give a shout out to Texas losing to. Who cares? They lost to somebody. Arkansas. Oh, God bless Sark. 7 wins, Sark. That's what's going to happen. At one point in time, I was really rooting for him. He supposedly stepped away from the bottle and the prescription pills and copious amounts of women. But then he decided to poach UW's defensive coordinator, and all bets are off in my mind. And I think this is wonderful. This is glorious for both of them. Good job, Texas.
Yes, and here is a update to a famous hat that Jimmy Lake had about run the ball, and here you go.
Oh.
He just had an update.
Oh, that's going to be found in the team store right now.
You can find it for sure. I'm sure it's a legit thing. It doesn't look like anything made up on Twitter that I just found. So there we go. And I'm getting the stream here of that Jacksonville State Hail Mary. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it up over here. And there we go. So let's go ahead and see this. I have not watched this yet. Oh, what were they doing?
Wow.
How does that let's go back here and see if I can. I mean, he gets the ball at the 20. He gets it at the 20. There's 2 guys right there. Makes this guy just miss, just looks silly. And number 9 coming in. Do you see this block right here?
Oh, that's a fantastic block. That's a perfect example of a wide receiver not giving up on a play, even though he's not involved in the catch. And
Man.
it obviously paid dividends for.
I mean, we're looking at from the 41-yard line, bombing it down to the 20, and then just making a miss. And then that block right there. Man, that why can't those kind of things happen to UW ever anymore? I know they used to apparently, but yeah.
Don't know. Good question. Yeah. I would love to see some of that magic. I would really just love to see UW actually perform when the lights are on. When they're playing a tough opponent on a national stage, to see them actually come out and play with fire and energy. I'd love to see them be prepared, the want to win.
Oh yeah.
It's been a while. Like, there's been some question marks even under Pete's tenure, that with the big games, that the team just, they fall apart. They don't come prepared. They don't.
Are you referring to the Stanford game early in his career at UW, where he tried that weird fake thing and then just didn't work, trying to get some of that Boise State magic going?
Well, I think that was probably the end of him trying to utilizing any sort of Boise State magic, because
True.
that blew up in his face, and he decided that that was something he was going to excommunicate from all of his play calling. But I would say that he went away from it too much. There's been a lot of issues with Pete. Obviously, we lost to Oregon a couple of times when we shouldn't have.
Yep. Yep.
There's been the issue with playing in big bowl games and not meeting up to even a competitive level. I'm not talking about Alabama. That's an exception.
Oh yeah.
Alabama
Well,
they're extremely talented. The best athletes money can buy. But Ohio State, which actually have a fair number of costly athletes as well. But regardless, a team like that, you'd like to see UW actually play with a little bit more competitive fire at the beginning, a little bit more execution, um, rather than rather than having to come back when the other team basically gave up because they thought they already had the game won.
no, I agree, and we're getting a few quotes in from the locker room now, saying that Terrell Bynum said that UW's offense, and this right here is going to blow your mind. Okay,
Okay,
Terrell
waiting.
Bynum is saying that UW's offense came out really flat today, and he
Hmm.
added that if they play the way they did in the first half, they won't win many games.
Well, I would absolutely agree with that. Um, I don't think it's necessarily the players. Yes, they came off flat, and part of that is on the coaches. Part of that is on the athletes. Yes, the honestly the play calling was flat. They opened up the playbook in the second half. They did things that they didn't even attempt in the first half. I'm not sure where Donovan was going, but I sure hope he's not going back to Seattle. I'll tell you that much.
No, I agree, and I found another video with actual audio this time of that Jacksonville State beating Florida
Oh,
State play.
excellent.
So I'm going to go ahead and share that here, and this is amazing. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead. There we go. See if I can get this any bit bigger there. There.
Here's Cooper, four-man rush for Florida State, going to cut it loose. Phil Johnson caught it inside the 10. Phil Johnson on his feet, he'll cut back, and Jacksonville State has
That's
won
amazing.
at the horn.
That's amazing. It's plays like that's exactly why you love college football.
Oh, for sure. And as much as this is about, the UW game and the embarrassment of that, it was a good game or a good day of college football. I'm looking over my shoulder. They're showing the highlights of this game. Bad timing on my part, but the Holy War has been on. We've been watching Utah versus BYU, and I believe BYU still has a 3-point lead in that game. And I'm probably wrong. But college football is college football. But let's look forward to next week. UW taking on Arkansas State at home, if I am correct, and I'm going to go ahead and check that really quick. I can't imagine UW would be playing at Arkansas State, and no, they're not. They are at home. So UW going to win, or is it a toss-up?
I'm gonna say UW wins. Yeah, obviously that you can't take anything for granted. They lost to an FCS school in Montana and looked completely inept in the first half of the Michigan game. Actually, the first three quarters, I should say.
Yep.
But at the same time, I do believe that there's going to be some righting of the ship. I don't believe it's going to be a beautifully ran offensive scheme, but I believe that it'll be probably enough to win. If they don't win, then I mean, I absolutely expect John Donovan to go back to the NFL and be Dwight Schrute again.
Yes, and here's another quote coming out from Terrell Bynum as we end this stream up. So if you've been watching, thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and so you can get notified when we go live for the actually the halftime show tomorrow during the Seahawks game. But Terrell Bynum, when asked if he thinks UW should throw the ball more, his response was, "You're asking a receiver. I always think that." But here's the part that really gets me, and this just ticks me off beyond all belief because I can see utter BS through this. It says, "But whatever JD, meaning John Donovan, calls, we believe in it." I'm calling BS on this.
I think the first half absolutely showed that they had he lost the players. To me, it showed that he lost the players. By the end of the first half, into the second half, I think many of the defensive players were starting to get lost. They basically lost motivation. They can't see an offense that's going to score, give them any support. That really affects the morale. John Donovan I'm sure he is a good person, but he's a really shitty offensive coordinator and motivator, apparently. Not that I can do any better, but I am not getting paid $850K to coach young men to throw a football and catch it.
Yeah, no, agree. And the only parallel that I can think on this is going back to the Nick Holt days when we were saying these same things about UW's defense back when our offense actually could move the ball. And I remember being one of those fans saying, just give him time. Just give him time. It'll be okay. And it never was okay. And he needed to go. And, I'm on the other side now. It's not okay. It's time for John Donovan to reevaluate things. And if they don't come out and just absolutely obliterate Arkansas State, then he should go. And if not, I mean, I saw this picture, and this guy, I believe, is available to become the play caller because judging by these plays here, he would do a much better job than John Donovan would do. But that's going to do it for us tonight. David, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming down to Nampa and hanging out. Hopefully, we'll have a much better result tomorrow during the Seahawks game. But as always, thanks for watching, listening, all that fun jazz. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe, follow us on the Twitter, follow me on at Keef67, follow David at Pet Lessons, and we will see you later.